All right. Good evening, everybody. And in Liberia, we like to say good evening because actually you're getting ready for bed, and most of you are in bed already. But we want to say welcome, welcome, welcome again to another edition of This Could Be You. And this is Liberia Shall Rise. I'm your host, Mr. Augustine Sharif, and I'm joined today by Mr. Emmanuel George. Dr. George, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very great. It's a wonderful day. The weather is good, so thank God for today.
You know what? This week, I think one of the best news I heard was that there was finally consensus when it comes to daylight savings time. So hopefully we can get rid of that thing because it messed me up all week.
Well, the people in the medical field are protesting against it, so let's see what happens.
Oh. Oh my goodness, we would never win this battle. Thank you, friends. Friends in Radio Land. If you are listening to us on Big FM in Monrovia, if you are joining us on Facebook, if you are joining us on YouTube, we'd like to welcome you to Liberation Rise. And today we have our special guest. He was here on our platform, and you know, um, due to some incidents that took place, he had to leave, but he is here for that unfinished business. And I know most of the young guys, young people, young girls, a lot of you were sending us questions. You want to know more about UNCF. So today you will have some of those questions answered for you. And we will be more than glad to just relax and let our guests take over the show. Dr. George, I'm going to go ahead and play our theme song. And while that song is playing, we want to encourage all of our viewers, share the show. There will be critical information here that will help someone. So please share that broadcast. Let other people get the good news that you will be receiving today as well.
Exactly.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. This is Augustine Sharif, and I'm joined with Dr. Emmanuel George. And this is another segment that we are calling This Could Be You. Dr. George, I will bring our guest on, and I would like for you to do the honor, introduce our guest before I bring him on the show.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Frank's on Facebook or YouTube. Those of you who are listening to us on Parasata FM in radio in Bon counties and Nima counties. Our good friend on Big FM Monrovia. Again, my name is Emmanuel George, and I'm glad to be here with my friend and colleague Augustine Sharif. Welcome to Liberia Shall Rise, the program that brings a new spin to the Liberian discourse. A platform where we firmly believe that Liberia has all the potential to be a great nation. This could be you. This can only take place if all of us do our part. It is for this reason we do not spend countless hours discussing the what ifs or what is or what is wrong, but what is and what can be with Liberia. Therefore, tonight we continue this awesome series that many of you have come to love and admire. This could be you. Again, we are aware of the gloomy realities of our nation. We are aware of the growing issue of rape. In fact, last week we had an expert who discussed this on this platform. So we are fully aware. We are aware of the situation developing in Lofa County with the by-election being scheduled and the in and outs. We are aware of the situation of the court case with Mr. Alexander Cummings and what his lawyers may have discovered during the discovery process at the court. We are surely aware of all those things, but we, in most of our communities, we found out that we are either confronted with hundreds of Facebook Live videos that seem to serve the sole purpose of berating one of our own to stupor, and there's a great absence of role models in most of our communities at Liberia. But nevertheless, despite all these gloomy realities, just take off time with me right now and go into the point of imagination. Imagine a Liberia for 1 minute. This is a Liberia where you graduate from high school and you see a vast potential, vast opportunity for you to excel and to succeed. You can find a company to work with. People are calling you for internship. And there's thousands of adverts out there of different companies offering jobs. A Liberia where you have opportunity to live your dreams, no matter how difficult it may seem. This is a Liberia that we hope for. This is Liberia we grew up thinking about. And this is the same Liberia our guest tonight hails from. Despite the unfolding news of our country, despite the gloomy reality, there are hundreds of Liberians who are beating the odds. Theirs is a story of success that we believe is necessary to share on this platform, from local government to the classroom, from the people of Liberian origins, are making meaningful impact in their communities, in their society, and in the various places they find themselves. They are highly influential in their areas of speciality. We are certain that as our guests share their stories, you will be as motivated as we are on this platform. It is certain that we can too. That as we listen to the story, it's certain that we can, including myself and you, summon the strength to rise above our current situation despite the odds that seems to be against us. Again, these Liberians that shall be our guests in this series, This Could Be You, could be a beacon of hope and shall lead you to the realization that Liberia indeed will rise again. Our guest tonight is a man of distinction. In fact, he was here with us last week, but there was an unfortunate situation that made him to leave last month, rather than made him to leave the set. He is currently the Vice President, Chief Financial Officer of the United Negro Funds, and the Minister of the Gospel accredited to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Please join me in welcoming again to This Could Be You on Liberia Shall Rise, Mr. Seth Bardu. Good to have you again.
Good to be back. Hello, LIB.
Yeah. So, I mean, for those of our guests those of our listeners who were on the show last time when you left, and for those who are joining us recently, before we go in, I just think before you introduce yourself, I just want to if you can share what's the condition of your son right now.
Oh, he's doing fine. The car was totaled, but he is doing fine. So we praise God, and we're glorifying his name. So praise God. Appreciate all the prayers.
Amen. So those of you who were praying, those of you who were sending out prayers last time we met on the show, I want to tell you that you have the good news out there. So the Lord has answered your prayers. And
Amen.
continue hanging on to him and depending on him for his goodness and favor in every one of us' lives. So good evening, Mr. Bardu. Thank you so much for taking off time to be on this platform. I know that you are extremely busy, gentlemen. You have a lot of caps you carry. Over the time, you have been very successful in many ways, and you have also some other lot of challenge. So just again, now, can you just tell us who is Mr. Seth Bardu?
Well, I was born not too many years ago. I was born off of Capitol Bypass. Those of you who knew where Maternity Center used to be, I guess, I'm not sure if it's still called Maternity Center. I know the Ministry of Health occupied that spot for a while, so I'm not sure what is happening there now, but that's where I was born. My parents lived off of Ashburn Street, and that's where I was born. I have 5 sisters and myself. I started school in Liberia, went to demonstration school, and then later on our ships to go overseas. We can discuss that. Not overseas. Well, kind of. I went to school in Ghana after I left demonstration school. But that's in a brief nutshell is who I am.
Oh, that's amazing. So again, it's good to know that you were born in Liberia. What are some of your memories of Liberia as you?
Oh, I have so many memories. I mean, from the time I was a child, and you know, if I told you my age, I don't mind telling you my age. I'm gonna turn 65 this year.
Wow.
Yeah. So anybody who is,
you look 45. I have
well,
more
thank
gray
you.
hair than you do.
Thank you. Anybody who was in my age group would probably remember some of these things, but I remember some of my fondest times where, for instance, Independence Day was a huge thing in Monrovia, you know, and all the kids had to be dressed up. I had my suit on, and for those of us who were under 12, there was a big time party for all of us at the Executive Mansion.
Oh.
In those days, the Executive Mansion was not on Capitol Hill. The Executive Mansion was on Ashburn Street, where I lived. So my dad would drop us off, my sister and myself. And my older sister, she was older than me, so she went to City Hall. They had their party at the City Hall, and my dad would drop me off and my younger sister off at on Ashburn Street, and then take my sister to City Hall. Theirs was a little later. And we had gifts, and you know, the live band playing, and there was lots of good food, you know. And at demonstration school, even though I was young then and I could not participate in the Flag Day parade, but I was always proud to see demonstration school in their blue and white, you know, drilling down the streets of Monrovia. You know, there were some kids who did not like us, and they called us all kinds of stuff. I'm a minister, so I can't tell you what they were telling us, but you know, they had a different acronym for our school. You know, it was called, you know, MDES. It was Monrovia Demonstration Elementary School, and they would say Monrovia Dog Eat S. I'm not going to say the word. That was the kind of stuff they did, you know. But it was a great time, beautiful time, and that was before I left to go to school in Ghana. One other memory that I have, of course, is not very, I would say, I mean, it was a solemn time. That was when, in 1919, I was much older, though, of course, by then. I was at the University of Liberia then, and it was a Friday night, and we had gone from choir rehearsal, and then we decided the Baptist Church was celebrating its 100th anniversary in Liberia, and so I think it was a 100th, I believe, yeah. And of course, the president then, Talbert, had been a high-ranking a Baptist minister, and he had a role in the Baptist Alliance, like you call them. And so I decided, let me just go and visit, and I want to go see this concert and this whole celebration that was going on. It was being held at the Centennial Pavilion, you know, not too far from where I lived. I lived right down of E.J. Roy, and going close towards Johnson Street. And you know, those of you who live in Monrovia, you know exactly where the Executive Pavilion is. And so I decided to go. There was one thing that was interesting, though, that night, and that was April 11th of 1980. Ashmont Street was dark, very dark. And, that was a street that was always lit. And I was a little concerned, but not that as concerned. So, of course, I went up, all the dignitaries are on the main floor, so I could not go in on the main floor. So I went up on the balcony, and I went and sat towards the front of the auditorium. And then special security, I forgot how you call them, the special security came to me.
SSS.
SSS, yeah. They came to me and they told me I had to move. And because I was kind of where I was seated, I could look down and I could see the president, so I guess for security reasons, I was moved. And after I moved, something came to my mind and said, what if folks start shooting in this building? I don't know where that came from. I guess it must have been the Lord, because it said, the thought was like, what if there was shooting in this building? What will I do? And the first thing that came to my mind was everybody's going to try to rush out. So I decided, okay, if that's the case, I'm going to go under one of the benches and just stay put and let the crowd go out and then leave. Little did I know what was happening. In fact, at the end of the well, let me go back just a little bit. I remember the choir because I was into music. I had a youth choir. I had a church choir. I was very active in my church. And the song that they sang registered in my mind. And I still hear that song even today. And some of the words went something like this. What shall I render unto God for all his blessings? What shall I render? What shall I give? All I can render is my body and my soul. And I was wondering, with hindsight, was that a prophetic song? Knowing that a few hours later, Talbot was going to be dead.
Okay.
That's all I render. That's all I can give. God has everything. Everything belongs to him. God has everything. Everything belongs to him. So the program was over, and I went downstairs. There was a crowd, everybody trying to shake the president's hand, and the president looked amazing. There was a glow on him. I had seen him before, but there was a glow around him. I mean, he was just, I don't know what the right word is, and he had on his high height suit.
Yeah.
And the gold buttons. I mean, with his little stick that he was holding. He looked so good, and everybody. I wanted to reach out to him and shake his hand, but I said, too many people. I'll do it the next time. Only to hear the next morning, when the national anthem came on, that Talbot was dead. And I knew something was wrong because while I was in school in Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown.
Okay.
And I knew the national anthem came on. I was then about 8 years old, I think, 8, 9 years old when Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown. And then I was in Ghana when they had several other coups. So I told my siblings and my parents, I said, I think something is happening. Next thing we saw, soldiers in trucks driving down Johnson Street Bridge, going across the bridge, the Gilbert Tucker Bridge, going back and forth. And I said, something has happened. And then, of course, we knew the rest of the story. So from the parting, from a younger Seth to this time to see the government overthrown, those are some of my memories. Not always the best memories, but that's all part of life. We all go through ups and downs. And it was just part of life. But it was fun when I was growing up. It was fun. I remember when I had to funeralize my brother-in-law, and I was telling the story about my older sister, because when we were growing up, people who belong to we call them society people. They have a formal name for them. But I remember I was going to an evening school, a school called Olele Crawford. I think it was Olele Simpson. I keep getting them confused. But anyway, it was right off of Carey Street. And we were walking back home, and we had just crossed Broad Street. We were on Lane Street, and we saw two men in their top hats with their black tailcoats, walking in the middle of the street. And we ran away, and we went right back to the school because in those days we said society with 8 children. So we just ran. And I was teasing my big sister. I said, you didn't even look out for me. You were running ahead of me. I was trying to, my little feet, trying to chase you on, but those were some fun times. There was a lady who used to walk the streets, and every time there was a funeral, she would follow them. And the kids, we called her grandma, how would we call her? Ole Pigfoot. And we would chase her, we'll follow her. And I remember one time she chased us and took my school books from me. And, my other friends had to go and plead so I could get the books back. But just children, and we just enjoyed our time in Liberia. I mean, those were those were great days. Demonstration school, we had, they call the cheese bus, the yellow big bus.
Yeah.
I just walked up from my house to the library on Ashmore Street. The cheese bus came, picked us up, took us to school. I mean, the cafeteria, we had fantastic meals. They fed us it was a great time, and I really enjoyed my stay. Those were the good old days, as I would say.
It's good to know that. I mean, when you started talking about the names you call your school, I remember even the CDB King, they used to call them like you like a dog be a king or something like that. So yeah, so like you have a way of giving names to everything, especially when you guys are in competition schools.
Yeah.
But so now you live in the US, and what were those factors? What brought you to the US?
Well, it's an interesting story. I left Liberia when I was about 8 years old, and I was transferred to go to school in Ghana. And I went to, for those of you who've lived in Ghana, you probably have heard of Achimota School. My parents lived in Achimota School, the primary division. Excellent school, where the passing of the national exams was like, if the passing rate was 99%, it wasn't good. It was like 100% pass rate. Excellent school. So after that, I went to secondary school there also. When I returned to Liberia, I was kind of like, I've been away from my family for a long time, so I wasn't ready to go anywhere. I just wanted to come home, settle down, get my college degree and go to work, So I enrolled at LU, and everything was going well until it was finals. And I remember this. I think his name was Mr. Muhammad. I think he was a Muslim, by the way. So I went to him and I said, "Listen, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and the exams, English 101 was scheduled for Saturday. It was 101, but we had several sections. I think it was like 2 or 3 sections of English 101 because it was a large class, and all of them were scheduled to have exams on Sabbath. So I went to my instructor and I said, I can't take exams on Saturday. Do you mind if you give me another time to take it? He said, I don't have a problem, but we have to get clearance from the dean. Well, the dean did not want to do it. I went and brought my pastor. He said no. I went and brought the president of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Liberia. He said no. And then he called me on the side. He said, "What's wrong with you? We've had Seventh-day Adventists coming to this school all this time. We've had no problems. Where are you coming from? So on the day of the exam, I decided, I didn't even tell my parents. I just dressed up and went to church. Well, to cut a long story short, when my grades came in, they did not give me an incomplete. I thought I was going to get an incomplete. I got an F. And that impacted my GPA. And so the next semester, I was going to go on academic probation. Well, right around that time, somebody came to visit, the president of Oakwood University from Huntsville, Alabama, came to visit my church on Camp Johnson Road. We had just renovated our church, and we're having a big celebration. And he saw me conducting the choir. He never asked me any questions. And he said to the president of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Liberia, "Who is that young man?" Next thing I knew, I walked off LU's campus one day, went to Robertsville, jumped on the plane, and I was on my way to Oakwood University with a 4-year scholarship. Didn't have to worry about paying anything. That's the power of God, what God can do for a person. There were others from my church who had spoken to the president and had lobbied to go to Oakwood. I didn't even know that. But I did not. And they chose Oakwood, but the president chose me.
Yeah.
And before I realized, I was at Oakwood. So I hated leaving my parents because I had been away from them for so long. But with hindsight, I knew God had to move me out because there was a storm that was brewing.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, it's an extremely amazing story. We can go on with it for a while and expand it. But let's move to two other things before we take a music break. Now, you're in the US, you are at Oakwood, you have started. What influenced your career joining by profession?
Right.
What is your profession, and what influenced that?
Yeah. Well, my dad thought I should be a medical doctor.
Okay.
And he was going to send me to school in Germany. And my dad was one of those guys who was very entrepreneurial in his mind. I mean, he was the first person who sold television in Liberia. I mean, he had a electronics shop on Ashburn Street where he repaired radios, and so he had. And then we built a bakery under our house. On that was on the other side of Ashburn Street. I was on the Johnson Street side, going towards Waterside, and we used to supply bread to a lot of the restaurants and the supermarkets, from the Lebanese bread to the long. How you call that long bread?
The flat bread.
Yeah, and then the round. They had the round, and then they had the round bread.
Yeah, then they had the plantain bread.
Yeah. So he wanted me to go, but he had a lot of relationship with German. All his equipment came from Germany.
Okay.
And so he wanted me to go to school in Germany to become a medical doctor. But I can't stand the sight of blood. And if I was a doctor, I'd be killing a lot of people, But I just had a natural knack when I took accounting. I just seemed to have a natural knack towards accounting and business. That seemed to interest me more than anything else. And when it came to the sciences, I wasn't one of the smartest students around. And those guys, be talking about their math and stuff, physics stuff. I just couldn't figure it out. I struggled with those things, but I was never one of the brightest students around. But accounting, people tell me accounting is difficult, and for me, accounting was like my kind of thing.
Okay.
So when I went to Oakwood, and folks would call me, they would say, "Seth, man, he's a smart guy," and I'll be saying to myself, if only these guys knew. I never ended up at the top of anything. I never got any rewards for anything. All I knew was I just loved accounting. And of course, I knew I was in America, and I couldn't go back home and say I didn't have a degree after going to America. So I just buckled down and said, I got to get a degree, and I wasn't planning on living in this country. I said, I'm going to get my degree, I'm going home. But 40 something years later, I'm still here. But it was because of my love for accounting and business. That's how I ended up majoring in accounting for my undergrad, and I went and got my master's in business administration at Andrews University.
Oh, awesome. For those of you joining us on Facebook, YouTube, Big FM, and Paraceta Radio in Bonn and Lima counties, this could be you. My name is Emmanuel George. We're going to take a musical break, and when we get back, we're going to continue listening. Continue the story with Mr. Seth Bardu.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Love is all we need to make a stand. This is the time to come together. Keep Liberia safe forever. So open up your heart, let the unity begin. Love is all we need to make it stand. Let's cultivate one another. Learn to live together as brothers and sisters. Without togetherness, we won't have a peace of mind. Unify and have a peaceful, sweet Liberia, land of liberty unity is our home. Let us keep it standing. It's the one and only home that we have. Oh, sweet Liberia, love is all we need to make it stand. Unify and have a peaceful home. Change is all we need to make it stand.
Okay, good to be back. Now, so you have a first degree in accounting. I remember back in Liberia, there was a show. I don't know if you watched it before you left. This Flomo show, and they asked Flomo to study. They asked Flomo, "Did you study accounting?" He said, "Yes, I know how to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5." So I know accounting is more than that. But now you have started in. What experience? What have been your experience as an immigrant living in the U.S. Through your study, going into your career? What have been your experience?
Yeah, I think it was an interesting experience when I got to Oakwood University. It was mainly it is a historically black university, and you have three groups of people on campus. You have the African Americans, you have the folks from the Caribbean, and then you have the Africans. And for some reason, it looked like there was some kind of I don't know how you want to call it, but the Americans felt like they were on the top of the food chain, and then the Caribbean folks were in the middle, and then the Africans were on the bottom. When you walk in the cafeteria, if you look to your left, all the Americans sat there. If you look to your right, towards the door, all the Caribbean people sat there, and the Africans sat by the conveyor belt where you put your trays and push them up. So I get to Oakwood, and of course, naturally, I'll go sit with my folks. So I sat with the Africans, in that section. But when I go the next day to the cafeteria, I won't sit with my African folks. I'll go sit next to with the Caribbean folks. And on the third day, I'll go sit with Americans. And I kept rotating. And I would walk on campus and I would tell people, I said hello to everybody on campus. And I would say, hi, my name is Seth and I'm from Liberia. And some folks thought I was very cocky, but I was doing that because there were a lot of African students who walked around campus with their heads down. And from where I came from, the way my parents raised me, I didn't see anything that was inferior about me. And so I have no reason to walk around campus like I came from, some place that was not good. In fact, I had some of my American friends would say, "Oh, you speak very good English," and I had a very standard response. I'll be like, "Amazing, isn't that?" They say, "Yeah." I said, "You know what? When the plane landed at JFK, the moment I opened my mouth, it's like I began speaking English like, whoops." And they'll be like, "Now you've been funny, Seth." Folks will be asking me questions like, "Well, I hear you have a lot of people who live in trees in Africa." I said, yeah. I said, the American embassy is on the tallest tree, And after a while, folks stopped asking me those stupid questions, But I was able to, it got to the point people didn't know where I was from because I was hanging with the Caribbean folks. I was hanging with the American folks. I was hanging with Liberian folks and the other African countries. We had an African club on campus. And every Christmas, we would go buy a goat and kill it and have a Christmas party and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so that was my introduction to not just race, but being an immigrant. I remember one summer, there was my roommate, his name was John Williams. He is from Liberia also. He lives in Rochester right now. He's a teacher there. And we went to Florida for an evangelistic meeting. I was the song leader, so in the daytime, of course, all the evangelistic meetings, everything happened at night. So in the daytime, we're free. So there were some shops not too far from the house where we lived with the pastor. And this pastor happened to have been the guy who was the president of the Seventh Adventist Church in Liberia when I was there, who went to beg for me at LU. So we're in his home. So John said, let's just go to the store. So we just strolled through the neighborhood, went to the store. On our way back, we see this police car kept going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And they stopped. And then said, gentlemen, may I speak with you? So we stopped, So he said, do you have any form of IDs on you? So we have our Oakwood ID, and I had my Social Security card in my wallet, So he said, what are you doing here? We said, oh, we just went to the store and we're going back home. So, I didn't know, with my big mouth, I just said, so is there a problem? And he said, well, somebody in the neighborhood called and said there were two black folks walking in the neighborhood. And I was saying to myself, okay, I didn't realize we couldn't even walk in the neighborhood. And it's all strange to me. You're walking on Broad Street, you're walking down Waterside, you're walking down Crown Hill, wherever you're walking, you're just walking. Nobody calling in, you're just walking. Nobody calling police, So I'm like, oh. So my eyes began to open. By the time I got to Andrews University, I mean, he was a nice cop. And after we spoke, he knew we're not from there. We're from, we told him we're from Liberia and all of that, So he let us go. We went. When I got to Andrews University, I had a professor, white professor, who said to me, after I took a couple of his classes, he said to me, I wasn't going to amount to anything. I'm not sure if he's alive or not. I need to find him and talk to him and let him know where I'm at now. I mean, not to brag, but to say, my brother, you lost your mind or what? You don't tell students that kind of stuff. So that was another experience. And I used to walk on Andrews campus. And, at Oakwood, everybody spoke with everybody else. I walk at Andrews campus and they're like, you speak to people, they look at you like, why are you speaking to me? So that was another experience. And when my first job that I started, one of the executives of the organization, when he knew I was being hired, his first comment was, he needs to go back where he came from. So it was not just a racial thing, a black thing, but it was also an African thing. Well, you're from Africa, you don't belong here. You're coming to take our jobs. Go back where you came from. So that's how I got introduced to the racial stuff. And as a matter of fact, one summer, I was a summer intern. I was auditing the books of churches from Kentucky, to Tennessee, to Alabama, Mississippi, the Panhandle of Florida. Just myself driving all over this place, auditing books. I was still a student at Oakwood then, and I made a bad choice. I was trying to go to a place in southern Alabama. And I looked, they didn't have GPS and all these things we have now. I had my map book. So I looked at, and I was good at geography. So I took my map book and they said, this is the quickest way to get there. So I drove through all these little towns and stuff, small towns. And as I was driving, I looked at my tank, my gas was getting low. And I remember trying to drive to some gas station and I saw all these white, big burly men sitting out there. And something told me, Seth, you better keep driving, And I began praying, Lord, please get me to my destination before it gets dark. God took me there. But from that day, I learned that there's certain parts of the country you don't go through. If you have to take the longer route, from that point, I would take the interstates, So I was going to a place, it was called Columbus. It was close to Columbus, Georgia, on the Alabama line. Instead of just driving through Anniston, some of those back countries, I would go down Birmingham, go down Montgomery, and then shoot across eastward towards Columbus. But I learned that you're black, is the color of your skin, you just don't go anywhere and just go hang out. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the things that I learned when I came to this country, because of the color of my skin and because of my place of birth. Began, they were using those things to define who I was. But as a student, I excelled. Those of you who went to school in Ghana, they had a very stringent educational system. So when I left that system where I really struggled, when I came to America, I felt like I was on a honeymoon. I mean, school was, school was like, it's okay. You went to school in Nigeria, so you know what I'm talking about. Them British people, they scream everything out of you, So, but God bless, and I was able to be successful. I was one of the top accounting students in my school. I was the president. I was the treasurer of my senior class, and then went to Andrews University. Andrews University, I went there and I had no problems. I was a graduate assistant. When I left Andrews, they owed me money, even though I didn't have a dime in my pocket. So God made a way for me.
Okay, these stories are so amazing, and I didn't cut it. But now you have all these challenges. You have the if I can say that, the ethnic challenge, the continental challenge,
right?
And then even within the Black culture, that's why sometimes I share with people and share with students that I interact with, that even within the Black culture, there's also a level of discrimination, that you from Africa, you have you have this accent, you this one, you come in. So you had all those challenges. Let's go into your career. How did you navigate the space? Because you have been successful.
Yeah, right?
So how did you start? How do you navigate all these challenges? Someone out there may be listening to this and it may impact your life right now.
Yeah.
So how you navigated this? Where did you start from before? You did not become a vice president overnight.
No. It was a long journey. As a matter of fact, the Seventh-day Adventist Church based in the South, they have a regional headquarters in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
So their president called the business department and said, we need 2 students to come intern with us. Now, I don't know anybody. I don't know the big people in the church. I don't know anybody. So they chose the president of that organization. His nephew was my classmate. So they chose him. And they're looking for a second person. So they came to me and said, well, we do want to work this summer and intern. I was like, oh yeah, because I need some experience, something, So I interned. I went there and I interned with them. I interned my junior year. I interned my senior year. When I went to Andrews University to work on my master's, that summer I came back and I interned again for three straight years. I interned with them. There was a position that was opened in July of 2006. They never filled that position until I was done at Andrews. And on January 1 of 2007, after I was finished with my master's, I was invited to come serve as an accountant and auditor. I became accountant auditor. Next thing I knew, within 6 months or so, I was promoted to become controller.
Wow.
Before I knew, I was being asked to serve as the chief financial officer, the youngest chief financial officer.
You, in 6 months, you became the controller.
I became controller in 6 months, and that was in 2007. And by 2000,
1997.
No, that was 2000. I got my dates mixed up. It was 1987.
Good, yeah.
I wish it was that. I would be a little younger. It was 1987 when I finished Andrews University, and I was hired as an accountant. Within 6 months of 1987, I became controller, and by 1993, I was the chief financial officer for this organization.
Even within a difficult racist South, you were able to navigate through that channel. 6 months, you became controller.
Because God gave me a skill set that He gave me a skill where I could take organizations that were struggling financially and flip them around.
Wow.
I consider that a gift. I don't see it anything that I could do by myself. Mm-hmm. This organization was struggling. They could have gone under. Mm-hmm. But God was able to use me. So from that point on, I became known in North America as there's a guy, if you need to turn things around, he can turn things around. So I was there from 1993 to 2001. I left there. I went to work for the healthcare system for a real brief time. And there was a lot of racism in that organization. After I worked for about a year and a half or so, and I left. Right then, another church organization in New York wanted me. They asked me to come join them in New York, Northeastern Conference. They were at the point of bankruptcy.
Wow.
And they asked me to come. And by the time I left them, they had enough cash. They didn't know what to do with themselves.
Did they give you percentage on all these improvements?
No, I just got a regular salary. I left there. I went to what is called the Columbia Union, and it was there that I really grew because now I was serving on boards. I was chairing budget and finance committees of organizations that were making more money than the Liberian budget, the national budget of the Republic of Liberia. I was overseeing all of that. One organization where I served on the board, they were generating about $2 billion in revenue. The other was generating about $800 million in revenue. So I served there for about 14 years or so. And when I left there, took a sabbatical. And when I left there, I joined what is the United Negro College Fund. And that has been around for about 78 years. I serve as the senior vice president and chief financial officer. We issue approximately anywhere from $75 to $100 million as scholarships to minority students across this great country.
Okay, let's talk a bit about that. I see our viewers are so interested in the United Negro College Fund. But it's so exciting and so thrilling that we find ourselves in this situation. You went into the South, you went to Tennessee at the headquarters in the South, in working an organization, and your skill set plus your dependence on the Almighty to navigate. Within 6 months, you became controller. Within 5 years, you have already navigated to becoming the chief financial officer of that organization. That is exciting. That's great. That's a great news. I hope Liberians out there will know you are a Liberian, strange in this country. I mean, you bring anybody with you beside yourself and the blessings of the Lord upon your life. But now you are with United Negro Fund. You are now the vice president. Okay. You have explained a bit of what happens at UNCF, but what budget you control? How much money are you over?
Overall, in terms of annual revenue, we do about $250 million in revenue.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, we have endowments and investments that we handle. That's another maybe about $200 million. So it's a good size company, and it's a very complex organization.
So you oversee almost $1 billion every year in revenue.
$250 million in annual revenue.
Okay.
$250 million in annual revenue.
And then 200 million.
Right, and then we have our investments. I said that was about $200 million in investments. That's separate.
Okay, and that's your responsibility. That's what you take care of.
All of that is my responsibility. Yeah,
you have to make sure that all those monies look good. And
I have to make sure all those look good. The $100 million in scholarships that goes off comes with this Liberian signature.
Okay, so how does it work? How does scholarship fund work? How do you oversee?
Well, we have, and for those who are listening from the United States, I would tell them to go to uncf.org/scholarships, uncf.org/scholarships, and when they get to our webpage, we have about 400. They'll find about 400 scholarships listed. What some students fail to recognize is that it takes work to go through those scholarships to find which ones fit them. Because when people give us money, the money they give us, they give those monies to us with setting stipulations. They could say, we want this scholarship to go to only girls who want to go into science, technology, math, and STEM type programs. Some could be for the sciences, some could be for hospitality. So everybody who gives us money may tell us, this is what we want it for. There you go. There you go, right there. And that's my website. So what happens is that you have to go through all of them to see which ones you qualify for. And some of these young kids, they end up with 2, 3, 4 scholarships because they are hustling. They are hustling, and do you have to attend a historically Black college in order to receive this? No. Some of those scholarships we have kids who are going to Harvard University and Princeton, and they get scholarships from UNCF. Now there are some donors who tell us, we want the candidates to attend a historically Black college or university. Okay, we have about 105 of those. Okay, but UNCF has 37 schools that are members of UNCF, and Oakwood University happens to be one of those.
Oh.
So we have our member schools that we support, and we give them additional funds. We give them additional funds for scholarships, for supporting their campuses and all the things that they're doing, and we advocate for them in Congress. So we have people who go to Congress and advocate for all HBCUs, as a matter of fact. So there are all kinds of opportunities there. There are all kinds of scholarships there that people can get. Now, some folks have asked me the question, do you have to be a citizen of the United States to get one? No. There are residents who can get it. Now, if you live in Liberia and you're applying for this, I'm not quite sure. I've not gone through all the 400 scholarships to see. But there may be times when people give money and they don't have any specific stipulation. It could be there. I don't know. You know, I handle the signing of the checks. I don't process scholarships. And we have a firewall so that the people who process the scholarships and the applications, I have no influence at all. We have to create a firewall. So they do their work. They approve those who will get the scholarships. And then I will be the one to sign off in terms of the funds being sent to the schools where these kids are going to go to college.
So this can take you through, is it from bachelor's all the way to PhD, or just?
We have students now who are finishing up PhDs.
Okay.
The Gates Foundation, they gave us about $1.3 billion, and they did not want us to turn into an endowment. They wanted it all to be spent.
Okay.
So we finished all the undergrad. The only people we have in the pipeline now are those who are working on their masters and their PhDs, and that's to sunset by 2029. But there are others. There are other programs, and not only do we provide scholarships, but we have people on our staff. Because when we first started doing scholarships, we will give you the scholarship and then leave you alone. But some kids were not successful, so they will lose the scholarships. So we had to create situations where there are people who will support you, will help you with your homework and all the other things that you're doing to make sure that you're successful. It's not just a matter of we give you scholarship and leave you alone, but we want to make sure that there are people who will guide you along the way until you're finished. So that's in a nutshell is what United Negro College Fund does. We've been doing this since 1944, I believe, and we are still around. We are one of the premier organizations that give scholarships to students across this country, and we actually bring people, like Talbot would say, from mat to mattress.
Yeah.
People who had nothing, by the time they go through to college, they've moved their family and their social economic status from being in the projects or being in the very poor to middle class, and moving them on into other parts of the society. So we are moving people, and in so doing, we are also contributing a lot of money into the economy, because these people, they get education, they get good jobs, they spend, they build the economy up. And so we are really doing a lot to impact people.
Okay. One of our guests is asking a question. He's going to be on the show in June.
Okay.
Mr. Perkins is asking when you left Alabama, because he lived in Birmingham. He's been living in Birmingham since 1992. Oh,
okay. I went to school in Huntsville, Alabama. And Huntsville is about 2 hours. If you take 65 north straight, it would take you into Huntsville. You will see, I think it's 565. It would take you to Huntsville, and you'll find Oakwood College or Oakwood University there. We have a school not far, one of our HBCU schools not far from Birmingham. That's Miles College, and Miles College is right outside of Birmingham. That's one of our 37 schools that we support.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm inspired by your story. I'm grateful that you accepted to be on the show, and I'm proud of you as a Liberian who have done all this. I mean, I've been knowing you for many years, but the story just opened the person up and get you to know better, because in all our interaction, we did not really sit down to talk. It's beautiful part of the story. But if we have listener up there, if you have a question, you have a comment, just send in your question. Mr. Bardu is waiting to answer those questions. We're going to take a 1-minute break, and we'll come back. We'll either be accepting your questions, or we'll be going into our closing time. Sherry is going to join me at that time from the back room. So We'll just have a 30 seconds break and come back for questions. Okay. Do we have any comment or questions out there? Mr. Sheriff? Okay, we don't have any questions or come. Okay, we have, sir, how does it feel as a foreign national, most especially one who comes from a country of Liberia, to achieve all these degrees? With the kind of challenges our country is confronted with, who supported you all these years?
Well, I used to say when I was in, there are several things in colleges in the United States that for supporting minority and for poor students. Some are called BEOG, some are called SEOG. And I tell them, for me, my only OG I had was GOD. So when I came to Oakwood, my parents were not remitting monies to me. I was on the scholarship. So when I went to Oakwood University, I was on the 4-year scholarship. I worked 20 hours a week to make up for my room and board. So when I got through with Oakwood, I owed them nothing. In fact, I got a check from them for $1,000. The $1,000 deposit I sent to Oakwood for my, I think they call it a form F, I forgot, F1 or something, your immigration form when you come as a student. I forgot what you call it now, but you have to put a deposit down. So when I left Oakwood University, they gave me that check back. When I went to Andrews University, very expensive school, but I was a graduate assistant, and people were amazed how, as a graduate assistant, I got more money than any of my other graduate assistants. So between that and the summer when I would go to Nashville to go work, I saved all my money. I would stay in a hotel that served breakfast. So my spending money, my food money, I didn't spend any of it on anything because I know I had to go pay tuition. So I would go and eat in the hotel breakfast room because breakfast was free. And then in the evenings, some of the people I would go audit, they would invite me to their homes to eat. So at the end of the day, I spent almost zero. Yeah. They reimbursed me for my hotel. They reimbursed me for my gas. So when I went back to Andrews University, I had all my money. I said, "Here, my money." When I left Andrews University, they issued me a check for $16.25 because that's what they owed me. So it was by the grace of God that I was able to come to this country, go to school, no school loan, owed nobody anything by the time I was done. It had to be God. And the point I'm trying to say here is that if God could do it for me, he can do it for anyone.
Okay. Are you a member of any Liberian organization? And with all these experiences, how are you supporting the growth of Liberia right now?
Well, in several ways. There's an organization called NALA and National. I don't tell me to quote it now, but it's a group of Liberians who support projects in Liberia. I'm a part of that. I never attended Conla Academy. If I had lived in Liberia during my high school years, that would be the only place I would have gone to school because my parents would have forced me to go there. So I support them in all kinds of ways. And then because of my roles in different organizations, I have been very instrumental in Liberia in terms of over the past few years, especially since 1996, since 2006. We were very instrumental in finding seed money to establish the Adventist radio station. We were very instrumental in supporting Cooper Hospital. In fact, I still serve on the Cooper Hospital board. We've given that hospital hundreds of thousands of dollars for equipment and for providing all kinds of support. We provided seed money for Adventist University of West Africa on Advent Hill. We provided him. I was one of those who went to the Ministry of Education to speak to the guy who was in charge of tertiary education when he told us we could not start our school. And I said to him, my brother, your family is in America. We have enough of Liberians who don't have enough space to go to LU. Are you going to tell us we have to build a campus before you allow us to start a school? That's how we started the University on Camp Johnson Road. I was part of that conversation. And when the campus moved to Advent Hill, Columbia Union, where I used to work, we provided a lot of money for, in fact, almost every infrastructure you see on that campus was because of my role in my job here in the United States in providing support to put the structure up. So I have been very much involved. We've invited pastors from Liberia to come to the United States to see how things are done here. You know, I've sent personal funds of my own to support projects. So I have never forgotten where I came from. God has been too good to me for me to now say I've gotten to the point where I have arrived and I've forgotten where I've come from. I can't do that. So God has been mighty good to me, and I'm glad that I've been able to somehow pay back to a little bit. And that tells me that I now understand why God plucked me out of Liberia where He did, brought me here, placed me in places where I could be in a place where I could help my people.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's good that we have you on the show as you share your parting comment. We have young people that listen to you in Nema County, in Bom County, and on Big FM in Moserado County. So we're kind of expanding. So there's a lot of people listening to you outside Facebook and YouTube. Now, what career advice will you give to a young person that's listening to you in terms of the education, in terms of the career path? What advice would you give as you also give your closing remarks?
Yeah, I would say to them, don't try to go chasing after money, because money will take you the wrong way. It will take you to the wrong place. Find out and talk to your God and find out, God, what do you want me to do? Where can I be that I can make a difference in somebody's life? And while you're getting there, be humble. Those are the final words my parents said to me when I was leaving for Robertsfield. They said, be humble, be humble, be humble. Apply yourself wherever you go. You know, when I was taking accounting and the professor would give us 2 or 3 problems to solve, do you know how many problems I've solved? In the back of the textbooks, they may have about 10 problems. And the professor would say, well, I need you all to do numbers 2, 3, and 6. I'll go and do 1 through 10. Because I knew where I was trying to go. And I was saying to myself, people who live in America, they have all kinds of opportunities, but I'm a foreigner. I can't do school like they do school. I have to make sure that I am doing everything I can to make sure that I get where I need to be. So I was focused. I did the work. I did extra work, and I was willing to do anything. When I got to Oakwood, the first place they put me was on the grounds. Okay. The line, it was, I think, 7 of us. No. Yeah, it was 5 Liberians. They said there were no jobs on campus. They sent all of us to grounds to go dig the soil and plant flowers and cut grass. But when I got there, I worked, and I never knew American sun could be hot. And I worked there for 1 week. That sun was burning me like crazy. I went to my boss. I said, I quit. I went back to the employment office. I said, I need another job. They said, what kind of job you want? I said, I want an office job. They said, we don't have, I said, I want office. They said, where do you want to work? I said, I want to work in the employment office. They said, we got jobs here. But the lady, I kept going back. I kept going back. One day she looked at me a long time. She said, okay, I'll give you a job. She hired me. And when it was time for me to leave her department, after 3 years, I wanted to go work in the accounting department. She didn't want me to leave because I was committed. I was the only student who had a key to the administration building of that campus. I could go through a back door to go in my office and do work. So the point I'm trying to make to all of those who are listening is this: apply yourself, apply yourself. Nothing is too small for you to do. Yeah. Whatever your hand finds to do, if you have to go cut grass, cut grass. But while you're cutting the grass, be thinking about what you can do next. So when I was working on grounds and the sun was beating me like crazy, and and they were like, you're from Africa. I said, listen, the school I went to, they had a whole crew, maintenance crew that cut the grass. I didn't have to cut grass. So I said, but I did my part, but I said, I'm going to strive and do something different. And if you do that with a focused mind, and you are humble, I promise you, God can take you anywhere you want to go. So me from Ashmont Street, walking all over Broad Street, Crown Hill, sometime when school over and I won't go straight home and people will see me on the street and they'll go tell my mom, she will whoop my behind by the time I get home. That's this little frisky boy from Ashmont Street running finances of money that people have never heard of before. You have to remain focused. And I promise you, if you do that, no matter what field you decide you want to go in, stay focused and God will bring it to pass. Trust me on that.
Amen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Mr. Bardu, for being with us today. It has been a great experience with you. It has been awesome, and it has been just beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, again, this is the end of another edition of This Could Be You.
May I just say this real quick? I know I see something on the something about helping with the banking sector. If there's anything I can do to help anybody, Emmanuel George, Dr. Emmanuel George, he knows how to reach me. Whatever I can do to assist you, to even assist the country of Liberia, you don't have to pay me anything. Whatever I can do, what God has placed in my head is not there for me. It's for me to share. So whatever I can do to move Liberia one step closer to where it needs to be. So when we talk about this glorious land of liberty, God can take this country to places that we've never, ever seen before. And if we just strive and keep striving, Liberia will make it. Liberia is a great place, full of opportunities.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Again, Mr. Bardu says if you want him to help you in any of your accounting sector in Liberia, your company, or anything, he's willing to assist. Just send us an email or send us a message, and then we'll link you up. One of my favorite writers penned these words: higher than the highest human thoughts can reach is God's ideals for his children. These words, which have been the source of my personal development, could be yours tonight. I know we are all faced with different forms and different kinds of challenges. We may be surrounded by situations that are bleak or outright hopeless, but let us remember the famous words: where there is might, there is a way. The story of Mr. Seth Bardu could be yours too. He had thought that by coming to the US, you were walking green pasture, but you have heard about the struggles that he's went through. That this was not utopia. He had to make it work for him. He had to go through the struggle. He faced racism. He faced discrimination because of the country he came from, because of the accent he had. But the good news for you and me is we do not allow these challenges to determine his future nor our future. It should not determine your future path, nor shall it determine my future path. He did press on, and it stayed pressing on to his higher calling. He started as an accountant. Within 6 months, he became the controller, and within 3 years, he became the chief financial officer of that organization. Today, he's the vice president and chief finance officer of UNCF. overseeing about $250 million and another $200 million of income every month. He also told you that he oversees over $1 billion of investment that came from the Bill Gates Foundation for students scholarships here in university in the US. That's a lot. But he made it from Ashmore Street to the corporate wars of the United States of America. You too can do it. You too can succeed. So I do not know what is stopping you from attaining your high calling. Is it finance, lousy governance, emotional torture and distress, the situation in Liberia, no electricity, and other things that you are struggling? I don't know. But we know that when each of us summon our inner strength, we will overcome. And when we have overcome, Liberia shall indeed rise again. Until we meet for another edition of This Could Be You, I'm Emmanuel George, your host, and in the background, Mr. Sharif and Dr. Positive. We thank you so much for being a part of this program. I look forward to seeing you for another awesome edition of This Could Be You in April. God bless you and have an awesome evening. Goodbye.
Thank you, Dr. George. Thank you, Mr. Bardu, for honoring our invitation to be here today. And so, again, we just want to say thanks to our viewers and everybody. And this is the point in time that we, as panelists, we're going to sit and we're going to try to make sense of a lot of the stuff that was said to us today, a lot of wisdom that was thrown at us today. And so, gentlemen, I want to bring all of you guys back in. And Mr. Bardu, thank you again. Thank you for your time. And thank you for being here with us today. And we would definitely love to bring you back in the future, not too long future. We will want for you to come back because after this show, for sure, there will be a lot of questions coming our way that we will have no answer to. So you will have to come back to answer those questions. But thank you so much for your time, sir. And we don't want to keep you too long. So if you like, you can definitely log off if you like, or if you just want to be in the background, feel free.
I'll be in the background for a little bit and then I'll sign off.
Thank you, sir.
I want to listen to see what you all have to say.
All right, gentlemen. So you heard the story. Dr. George, thank you so much for conducting the interview. That was beautiful. But you heard the story. You heard Mr. Bardu's story. And many times, I got so many friends, so many young people who come to this country, and sometimes the excuses they make is some of the excuses they make would be something like, I just can't afford to go to school. I have to work. I got families back home depending on me. And, many times I've told people, look, you will be even better if you decide to, I'm not telling you stop your job. You got to hustle. You got to keep grinding. But by bettering yourself, whether educationally or even in the in careers that are something that you can do to improve yourself, you will be helping your family a little bit better. So I just want to bring it back to you guys. Dr. George, you did the interview, so I'm going to go Dr. Positive. What was your takeaway from the story, Dr. Positive, as you listen to Mr. Bardu's story? You are still muted, Dr. Positive. Sorry about that.
All right, is it better? Is it better? You can hear me now? Okay. Yeah, so I took a lot from this, and I'm looking for a handkerchief. I don't have no napkin on my table because my eyes are actually watering, because this is powerful in itself, right? To see a Liberian, right? We come from Liberia and we enter this new culture, culture shock, everything, but you are able to excel to the maximum, right? Somebody, like he said, the money he handles is more than Liberia budget, 10 times Liberia budget, but yet he's honest, he's fair, and he's doing the best he can to prove that he's representing an entire country, right? To prove that Liberians can be trusted, right? Even though he's not putting it up front, but it's like, all right, I'm representing a country. This is what we bring to the table. And this is something that I think anybody listening from what I heard, I think this is great as Liberian for us to be proud to sit here today to see somebody like him. And I wish I wish somebody had told me about the Negro Fund long time ago, because I went to school. I didn't get scholarship. I paid everything. I still owe them money, right? And I was like, I was kind of like, how didn't I know some of these things? You understand? And this is what Liberia Should Rise is for, to tell people, to help us correct some of the mistakes that we made. Because if I had knew there was scholarship like these, I would have worked myself, because I graduated with some honor too, but I never had scholarship. I was doing 2-3 jobs, right? Doing that too. So if I had scholarship, I could have been on top further, but that was my situation. But I hope somebody listening today can actually go to the website, or we posted it on here, take advantage of these things, and go to school, no matter how old you are right now, or even if you thought it was over for you, some way you can still go and make it. So I think those are some of the things that I took from this, And I just want to thank Mr. Bardu.
Thank you so much, Dr. Positive. What we're going to do, we're going to start lifting up offering for you to help you pay that student loan.
Student loan. Thank you so much. Thank you.
But Dr. George, before I give you the last word here, I took a lot from this myself, and a lot of the places that he was talking about, Mr. Badu was talking about, if I tell you, we all walk those places. We all walk. I was right down on Front Street. From Front Street, I knew exactly where that society building was. So we all walk that street. We all walk from home to school. Our parents did everything to make sure that even if they couldn't read, they made sure that we went to school, that we were able to read. And sometimes we came home. I remember there was a letter that my mom gave me one time that she wanted me to read for her, that someone had sent her. And so that was a proudful moment for me and for her to know that her son could only read. But one of the things that actually stood up for me was the decision he had to make very early on. Because in most cases, our culture is not exempted from that. Our parents, sometimes they would dictate the direction they want us to go. Or I want my son to be a doctor. I want my son to be a lawyer. I want my son to be this.
Mm-hmm.
And his parents set that goal for him. They wanted him to be a doctor, but he knew where his strength was. And so he was not going to force a career that he would not enjoy. He was not going to force a career that he was not going to succeed in. And so he had to make that decision and say, look, I'm going to the numbers game. And he excelled in that area. And today, this is his life. And this is the story we are very fortunate to hear. So we just want to say thank you for such inspiring story. Dr. George, you have the last word, sir.
No, I mean, the story was touching, as Dr. Positive said. Every time we have guests come on the show and share their experience, this day, most of our guests, especially those who are managers, they oversee anywhere between $500 million to $1 billion a year. And you hear the story, you hear the struggle they went through. It reminds us that nothing comes easy in this life. And, there is a lot of struggle in this world. And again, sometimes when we hear about the discrimination, we see it, we think only of racism between white and black. But social science will tell you every subgroup has its own set of discrimination against people in that subgroup. In the United States of America, for example, among the white people, there are white people, what they call, some white people call other white people trash. And those are how they call it. At the end of the Civil War, those white people who got money, who got rich because of the Civil War in this country, they were called the carpetbaggers. And to get to this thing. So in every subgroup, there's this distinction, there's this discrimination. It doesn't matter how much money you have, but it's just this discrimination that takes place. And we all have to learn to overcome it. And it's extremely wonderful to know that he overcome it, especially in the deep South. You guys, we all live in the deep South. We know that. And as you were explaining that story, one of my jobs I'm on the road most of the time. And I don't know, these Apple GPS, they take you on the back road most of the time, And a few weeks ago, I was driving. It's 4 hours drive from my house we have a situation. I was sent up to San Angelo, and I had to drive on the back road. In fact, at a particular time, telephone didn't work. internet didn't work, and you're on the back road, it can be fearful and scary. Some of these towns you see on the back road in the deep south. You understand? So I could understand his story. I could relate to his story, some of the things, and then coming into a foreign country. I did start my career in a foreign country, a country that has a large population. Just being a little Liberian in those kind of era and being able to work your way up, it's challenging. So I can relate to his story. And I'm sure many who listen to us tonight will also relate to this story. And also, again, I mean, he's the first guest of our guests have been talking about how they are part of Liberian groups supporting Liberia. But tonight, he's one of the guests who shows that he have invested through his influence. He have had his companies investing millions or thousands of dollars into Liberia, from the Copper Memorial Hospital to development of Radio Advent, the development of the Advantage University in West Africa. And so that is also what I think many Liberians who have come and they have become successful in this country, if each of us can give back to our country, it definitely had a cut it. So let me cut this short before they tell me to shut up.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add something quickly. I know some folks are watching us from Liberia, policymakers sometimes watch us. So he offered to help the country, Liberia. So anybody who watch on here and you are in the financial sector in Liberia and any help the government need, he had offered to help. So please, let's take advantage of this, because this is what we need for Liberia to rise. And he said, if he can help to take Liberia one step further financially, he will be glad to do so. And I just wanted to add that before we close.
Yeah, especially with his expertise in turning over companies that are dying. Yeah, the other company almost to death. After he left, they had over $500 million. Who don't want to call someone like that to help them out? Maybe we even invite him to help us with this Liberia Shall Rise.
Liberia Shall Rise too, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
because you're trying to say, I'm paying since you started working. I'm paying
The conversation is good, but of course, every good thing must come to an end. So we're going to have to end it here. And to our viewers, again, we want to say thank you for joining us. Next week, our own doctor, she will be here. You know who I'm talking about. Fourth Sunday every month, we have Mental Health Sunday, and we are going to have Dr. Quita Roberts, and we are going to be talking about something very interesting, something that Liberians are not immune to. You know, what are some of those physical and psychological impacts that really impact the family structure, the family dynamics, when you have a sick person or elderly person you have to take care of in the family? Or someone with mental health issue, how does that impact the family dynamic? We are going to be unpacking that next Sunday. So we want you to join us as we unpack the impact of physical and mental illness in the family dynamic. Until then, we from Liberia Shall Rise, we want to say thank you so much for joining us. We hope you've had a great time. Share the show, and we want to make sure that everybody gets this information. We want to say thank you again to our guests. Thank you, Dr. Positive. Thank you, Dr. George. And God's willing, we will see you next week. Stay safe, and God bless you all.
Whoa, 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 whoa.